What is the victory of the cat on a hot tin roof? Just staying on, I guess, as long as she can. If you look at my high school yearbook picture, you'll see that chunk of dialogue from Cat on a Hot Tin Roof as the quote next to my photo. When I was young, I really had a thing for Southern heroines, and also robots. I was a weird kid. One of my favorite movies has always been Gone with the Wind. When I was in elementary school, I'd watch the 3-hour epic over and over, wearing a long skirt and a shawl. Call it Southern Belle cosplay. Of course, I knew that the American Civil War was not a fun time and that slavery was horrific, but elementary school me wasn't nearly socially conscious enough to think beyond fancy parties and pretty dresses. She also knew that she wanted to be Scarlett O'Hara. Sure, Scarlett was mean, but she was also fearless. And being a very independent child, I was inspired by her desire to survive at any cost, to have the life she wanted, no matter what she had to do to get it. Thankfully, as I got older, I developed, morals and a conscience, so that turned out okay. My love of Southern heroines continued through high school. I was obsessed with the short-lived Aaron Spelling WB soap, Savannah. The pretty clothes and the houses, the cattiness, the sex everybody was having. And of course, my crush on Jamie Lunar. The redhead from Just the 10 of Us in Melrose Place. She played the conniving Peyton Richards, who was determined to break free of the white trash stereotype she'd always had imposed on her, no matter what she had to do. She was such a bitch. It was so hot. As a budding actress and theater nerd, my love of a specific brand of Southern heroine could really only take me to one place: Tennessee Williams plays. I devoured the Glass Menagerie and managed to identify both with Amanda, the older, faded Southern belle, and Laura, the shy, younger woman who had trouble with suitors. I was obsessed with Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire and found her lost prospects and descent into madness fascinating. And then, of course, there was Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, a play whose heroine, Maggie the Cat, seemed to encapsulate everything I loved about Southern heroines. There was a kind of life she wanted, and everything she did, whether it was kind or not, whether it brought her happiness or not, was in pursuit of the life she wanted. That seemed to be a running theme for me in the kinds of heroines I looked up to when I was young. They were driven, determined, and willing to be duplicitous and cold and unfeeling to get what they wanted. Cold and unfeeling. Which brings me to my fascination with robots. No, not just a fascination with robots, okay? I wanted to be a robot. Anyone here remember the 1980s sitcom Small Wonder? Yes. She's a small wonder, pretty. Yeah, you get it. When elementary school me didn't want to be Scarlett O'Hara, she wanted to be Vicky, the little robot girl who lived with the scientist who created her and his wife and son, learning how to be human as she lived as part of the family. I would walk around my apartment talking like this, trying to attract things with my magnet hands, pretending I had an open flap in my back where you could see my circuits. My parents hated it. They were really tired of that real quick. I was a huge fan of Star Trek from the time I was 8 years old. In fact, the first time I ever felt the tingles and jingles of desire, it was over Spock. That's right, Spock was my first crush. Live long and prosper, in my pants. That crush was soon followed by a crush on Egon Spengler, the brainy, aloof, and awkward member of the Ghostbusters, played by Harold Ramis. This became a slightly disturbing trend in my life. I like him really smart, and I like him kind of emotionally closed off. It must be that I want to be the one to crack them, Like, we'd both totally know there was more to life than being all emotional, but then deep down we'd be all emotional, Anyway, back to robots. So my favorite character on Star Trek: The Next Generation was the android Data. His journey as he explored his own budding humanity kept me glued to the screen week after week. And there was one episode in particular that floored me. It's called The Offspring, and it's an episode in which Data tries to create himself a child to explore what it'd be like to be a parent. When the android child comes to life, he allows it to choose a gender and appearance, and it chooses to be female. Data names her Lal, and he attempts to teach her everything he knows about being human. But something unplanned happens. She evolves really quickly, and her emotions become too much. She starts to glitch. And there's this great moment where feelings are welling up inside her, and she starts jabbing at her own chest, going, I feel. Eventually, she has to be shut down. I remember that gesture profoundly resonating with me because I too had trouble dealing with my feelings. I understood what it was like to have feelings welling up inside you but not have a proper outlet. Growing up the youngest in a very Catholic Puerto Rican household where you're expected to defer to everyone else. A home where your parents are constantly reminding you that family business stays in the family. Even after they have a horrible fight. Even when they make you cry. Even when all you want to do is talk to your friends about it, to tell someone, anyone, how going to bed to screaming every night feels like knives in your belly. Instead, you learn to put on a happy face, to not rock the boat, to not burden others with your problems. You become the kind of girl who goes into her room to cry because you don't want your parents to see. You become the kind of girl who doesn't cry in public. You become the kind of woman who doesn't cry. You become a robot. But then, you absorb stories, and they help you evolve and become, on occasion, human. You'll see a Scarlett O'Hara or a Maggie the Cat, and she'll remind you that heroines channel their feelings toward a greater purpose. That the key to unlocking your feelings is to point them in the direction of the life you want to design for yourself. You'll see a Vicky, a Spock, a Data, or even a Lal, and they'll remind you that there will be glitches, and there'll be times when your feelings will get out of hand, but that the greatest pursuit you can undertake is to become more human. Eventually, these stories will flow through you and become stories you want to tell. And so you channel your feelings to build a life where storytelling isn't just how you make your living, it's how you live. And you stay on, I guess, as long as you can.